Dr. Sybil Francis, Chief Executive Officer of the Center for the Future of Arizona, is here to share the Arizona Voters Agenda. Welcome to Square Off.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start about the center. Folks might not be familiar with it. What's your mission?
Our mission is to bring Arizonans together to create a stronger and brighter future for our state. So one of the things that we're very interested in is what do Arizonans want and what do they believe? So we listen to Arizonans to find out what matters most to them. We share trusted data about how we're doing on those issues. We're a very data-driven organization. We identify issues based on our understanding of what Arizonans want, and then we work across our state with partners, elected leaders, community leaders, educational leaders to make positive change.
And a nonpartisan organization.
We're nonpartisan, non-political. We don't endorse candidates. We don't lobby. We really are strictly speaking, listening to Arizonans and sharing that information.
So why did you think this agenda was needed?
Well, as you said, we have a lot of polarization and division discussions. That's the Arizona narrative, the national narrative. And from previous work we'd done, we had a feeling that that might not be true about Arizona, the likely voters in Arizona. So we thought we would poll likely voters in Arizona and find out what they thought were the most important issues and what they would like to hear candidates discussing as they compete for their votes.
So folks might say, hang on, my parents don't talk to me. I can't talk to my uncle. I see what's on TV. I see people fighting. I saw the primaries. That just ended. All I saw was polarization. So how can you say it's not real?
Well, it's really, it even surprises me, our results, because I think we do hear so much about that. And we do hear anecdotally, of course, that people have divisions in their family. And I'm not trying to say also that we all agree on everything. There are certainly issues that are divisive, but they tend to be what you might call hot button issues or of interest to a minority of voters. If you really ask voters, the majority of voters really do agree on most big things.
And there is an idea that really polarization is kind of built in to our politics. It's a structural problem when you look at primaries in particular.
Yes, exactly. So you could ask yourself, if we have so much agreement, how is it that there is so much polarization in primaries? How is it that the legislature, the elected representatives don't necessarily represent those views? And it is very much a structural issue. So as you know, primaries really tend to bring out the more hardcore of each party and aren't necessarily representative of the overall voter population. And also independents and non-affiliated voters have a much harder time voting, so their voice is largely diminished in the primary process.
So let's get back to the agenda. Help us understand how you put it together, who you talk to.
Sure. So we worked with High Ground Public Affairs and polled 500 likely voters in Arizona, all political affiliation, all age groups across the state. And so we asked them open-ended question, what do you think are the most important issues in the state? And we also had a set of questions on all the big issues that we asked to find out what they were thinking about education, the economy, immigration, and other issues.
So let's talk about the results and start with the survey findings, that things that politicians think are important that really weren't that important to the people you surveyed.
Well, you're kind of jumping to the end because we tend to try to focus on what brings us together.
We'll get to that, but I think this is really interesting because...
Well, we were surprised. We were even surprised. Things like building the wall did not make it onto the agenda. And I should have mentioned when you asked me how we put it together, the way an issue makes it onto the agenda is it has to have 50%, at least 50%, strong support among all likely voters. And then in addition to that, we also require that it at least have support among each subsection, so among Democrats, Republicans, independent, non-affiliated, and all age groups, at least 50% or above. So in other words, if you were voting on that issue, it would win because it has 50% or more.
I want to underline that because it's something I needed to understand as well. We're not saying everybody is kumbaya on all these issues.
Exactly.
There are some ranges of disagreement, but a majority do agree with whatever the position was.
And so when I say to you, for example, building the wall did not make it onto the agenda, it did not fit that criteria. Are there people who feel very strongly about that? Absolutely. But those people are not the majority, and they did not fit our criteria of 50% strong support across the board or 50% strong support and support
so
subgroups.
So check off a couple of issues that did get that kind of broad support.
Oh my gosh. So for example, education was, education is always a top issue, but the need for increased financial support to our K-12 system was very high. And when I say high, we drew the line at 50%. A lot of these issues are 70, 80, 90%. So education, more funding for education, higher teacher pay. And interestingly, career and technical education beyond high school for those people who are switching jobs. These are the kinds of things you don't hear about in the election that could really be very appealing to many voters. It ranked very high.
In real people's lives.
Yes.
But maybe not politicians' lives.
Yes, exactly. A very interesting finding also on the surplus. So we asked people
the state surplus.
The state surplus, which is now something over $1 billion, because the legislature did allocate some of those funds in the last session. But we said, how would you prioritize those funds? Would you invest in education, infrastructure, public safety, and other things, or would you like to cut taxes? The investment far outranked cutting taxes. So we did not find strong support for cutting taxes. Arizonans mostly feel that our tax system is fair. And that people should pay their fair share, and that they did not prioritize cutting taxes over these other issues.
So what do you hope voters do with this agenda over the next 3 months and in coming years?
So really our objective was, first of all, to share this information, because in some ways this narrative of division and polarization I think is very demoralizing and also makes people feel hopeless, like can we actually make any kind of change? So that's our first objective. Then we also want to make sure that that candidates are being asked questions. We developed a set of 6 big questions that the candidates should be asked based on the results of this survey. So for example, on immigration, the highest ranking outcome was how do we create a functioning border? And also on immigration, Arizonans want to see immigration reform and a pathway to citizenship. So you ask the candidates, that's our ideal, is that candidates are being asked these questions. What's your plan for immigration reform? What's your plan for creating a functioning border for Arizona? So we have a set of questions you can find on our website at arizonafuture.org. And so to inform candidate forums.
Okay, you stole my tease. You can check out the Arizona Voters Agenda. It's good to repeat it.
Yeah.
You can check out the Arizona Voters Agenda again at arizonafuture.org. Dr. Sybil Francis, thank you so much for joining us.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow Arizona's top stories and breaking news by downloading the 12 News app and subscribing to the 12 News YouTube channel.